All right, ladies and gentlemen, another great guest on Johnny D Talks to the Stars. This time around, Marlyn Mason. Marlyn Mason is the star of over 150 TV shows and movies, even including a movie, The Trouble with Girls, with Elvis Presley. Welcome to my show, Marlyn.
Hi, John. How are you?
All right, how's everything going with you?
Everything is great. And hello to Tupelo. I have lots of friends there.
All right, and you've been to Tupelo a couple of times, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, quite a few. Yeah, George Booth, who owns the hardware store where Elvis got his first guitar. He's a good friend of mine. Yeah, his grandfather started the business, and they still have the store. It's a big. Right after Elvis died, he said we never had that much they had customers, but he said they come in by the busloads now. So sometimes when I'm there visiting, I'll go to the store, and when a bus rolls in with the people, they present me as a kind of surprise. It's great. It's a lot of fun.
And well, as long as we're on the subject of Elvis, tell me about your crossover in life with Elvis.
Oh, my crossover in life. Well, I'm still crossing over. Yeah, he's actually given me a great old age. Of course, I'd prefer he'd be alive and well, but yeah, for about 40 years after his death, I wouldn't do any of the shows or anything. And I loved the guy. I mean, I just loved working with him, and I didn't need to make money off my photos and stuff, or I didn't feel the need until I started making my own short films. And I thought, I better rethink this photo thing. And the fans, through their buying of my photos, have helped me very much to get 3 of my little movies made. This was some time ago, and I've been doing independent, what they call micro budget films ever since. I've done about 27, I think, and I'm doing a horror one in July. Brad Douglas, yeah.
I mean, basically, now that you brought up the shorts, there's one that you made with a gentleman by the name of Puckett that we know up here at WTVA, and tell us a little about that.
Yes, I did. I actually made 2.
Oh, 2. Okay.
I forgot the title of the first one, but I was there for a film festival. That's how I met them, and they begged me, please come back and make a film with us. Eli Cox, the writer, the young writer, he was going, oh, please come. So I came home and I thought about it, and I called their teacher, and her name's just escaped me. A wonderful woman. And I told her, I said, if you guys can make arrangements, I'll come back and I'll make a movie with the kids. So I did that, and that was the one that we made. And then it wasn't that good, but the one thing that they did do was they finished it. They started it, and Puckett finished it, and I always admire that. And so I gave Eli an idea. I said, an old black man and an old white woman cross paths in the depths of the Mississippi Delta. I said, the story is yours. So that's all I said to him. And he wrote just a fine, fine film. And I showed it recently to an old director pal of mine named Ralph Sininsky, who turned 101 May 1st. Wow. And he is the sole surviving director of the original Star Trek series. And so I was visiting him for his birthday, and I've known him since I was 14, and we've done a number of TV shows together, but never a Star Trek. And I said, do you want to see that? I said, I've got a copy of it. So we looked at it, and Ralph is very critical. And he turned to me in his swivel chair, and he said, that is a nice little film. And he said he had about 4 criticisms of it, but very mild ones. They had to do with editing. And so I let Puckett and Eli both know how much Ralph, for him to say that was something, and I thought they deserved to know it. So anyway, they're working on something else, I hope. And I said, well, I'm still alive, and I can still walk and talk, chew gum, and hit my mark. So.
Well, going back, and again, Elvis, at first when you met Elvis, you weren't too fond of him, right?
Well, no, I wasn't fond of him. In fact, I told him when I met him, I wasn't a fan of his. And he's got that sort of little blank look on his face. If I was to read his mind and there was a little cloud up there, it would have said, "What am I working with?" And I said immediately after that, I realized it didn't sound nice. And I said, "I don't mean that unkindly. I just am interested in different music, and that would be Broadway type music." And so I had never seen a movie of Elvis's, and I was prepared not to like him. I thought this is based on nothing, but I thought he was going to be unprofessional and that I was going to just have a terrible 10 weeks. He walked in the door on time and immediately apologized to me. And I didn't know why he was apologizing. They said, "Mary Keach just dyed my eyebrows, my eyelashes." And I'm thinking, oh, he's sort of like a girlfriend. He's telling me something personal. And we just hit it off. That was the day of our first music rehearsal, and we just hit it off. And we both I think lived to perform, and that was what really connected us. And he loved to rehearse. We did a lot. He'd call me into that dressing room, smack his hand down on the bench, and say, "Sit down. Let's do lines." And then Tewksbury, the director, he just let us fly. He'd done a couple of films with Elvis before. And, a little interesting side story. You might have to get me back to what I was on. But a little side story was I was told, just a few years ago, that nobody wanted me when I say nobody, I don't know if it was the producer or the colonel. I don't know who it was, but somebody did not want me. They wanted a blonde, buxom beauty. And Tewksbury, who I don't recall ever working for before, he said, "You don't hire Marlyn, I walk."
Wow.
So he obviously knew my background, knew I could do comedy and sing, and so that's how I got it, was that he stuck in there, and they didn't want to lose him. And it was different. The movie was different of all of Elvis's movies. Our relationship was romantic, but it was a kind of scratchy romance. I was always at him. I was always nattering at him as Charlene, the character. And he was just this easygoing guy. He knew he had me wrapped around his finger, but I was not going to let him know it. And till the very end of the picture, I'm trying to get away from him. And it was just great fun. And I don't know about other leading ladies. I mean, some of the ladies I've met liked working with him, but I never had any issues with him. I never saw the man unkind to anybody, or it was those wonderful Southern manners of, "Yes, Mr. Tewksbury," and he didn't call me Miss Mason. I wouldn't have loved that. He called me Cap, because I wore a little cap to work every day. Okay. So he called me Cap. And one day he called me into his dressing room, and he turned and pointed and he said, "Take your pick." And he had a pile of hats. These guys, because apparently he never went shopping. He'd have stuff brought to him. Okay. So I in the trailer there, and there are all these hats. And he said, "Well, pick a hat." And I said, "Well, you pick it." I said, I don't know what hat to take. And I said, "You find one you like on me." So I'm trying on hats, and he picked a hat, and somewhere I have a photo of it, but I didn't save it. I don't save anything. But he had given me a couple little things, and now I wished I had them. Just for the nostalgia. I'm not a very nostalgic person, but because of the way things went with him and how he ended up, I would have liked to have had those little keepsakes. But I have photos, and that's the main thing. I've got tons of photos.
I guess he mentioned a couple of things about he wanted a little bit of a career change. He was getting tired of making that same old cookie cutter movies.
Well, I didn't know about that, but I learned that along the way after he died. But he did tell me one thing, and it was the saddest thing he ever said to me. He said, I'd like to make one good film because I know people in this town laugh at me. And that kind of put a nail in my heart. And I never, of all my conversations with him, and we had tons of conversations, that's the only line that I remember word for word that he said to me. And of course, then later on, doing the shows and learning about him through other people, I began to understand why he said that how he longed to do that one good film, and so, and that all that came back to me because, as I say, he'd been gone 40 years, so I had to look at the movie a number of times when I decided to do the shows in Memphis. I thought, I got to look at the movie because I know we had a lot of fun, and I got to get my memory going. So I watched the movie a number of times, and so I've got a nice little group of stories to always share with the fans, and they don't mind hearing them over and over.
Oh, and I mean, I guess during that time period when you were filming The Trouble with Girls, and around that time period, he was changing his career basically from the old-time rock and roller that he was to a new style. And you said that you saw his 1968 special and how it changed everything.
Well, I saw that came on near the end of the shoot of the movie. He called me in and he said, I've got a special coming on this weekend, and I'd like you to watch it and tell me what you think about it. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to tell Elvis what. So, and I still had never seen the guy perform. And so I turned the TV on. I think it was a Sunday night. And oh my God, he came on in that black leather. And I thought, I'm working with that every day. Really? Oh man, he was, well, I knocked on his dressing room door the next day and I said to him, I told you I wasn't a fan of yours, but I got to tell you, I am now. And I said, you don't know how talented you are. And he just gave me a big smile. And I said, honest, I said, I had no idea. He was just a natural performer. Besides being gorgeous to look at, because he was so honest in his performing, I think is one of the things that made him so great. And that voice, I mean, the range of his voice, I always thought, I told him, he let out one day, we were on the back lot and this big operatic Pavarotti voice came out. And I went over to his little trailer and I knocked on the door and he opened it and I said, was that you? And he said, yeah. And I said, oh my God, you could be an opera singer. And he just laughed. But he could have been a tenor. He could have done all kinds of music with that voice because of the range. He could have been a great baritone and he could have been a great tenor.
Well, and basically keeping in the role of Hollywood and everything, I guess one of the many shows that you started in was Hogan's Heroes. And I know I got some stories about, I guess, being on the set there or meeting up with some of the folks.
Yes. Well, next week or in 2 weeks, middle of June, a young man named Brian Young is coming, and I'm going to spend 4 days with him. He's on a book tour. He's done a very extensive book on Hogan's Heroes, and he asked me if I would join him in a couple of his tour books at the bookstores here, and I said sure. And it's going to be his birthday, so I just made reservations. He said money isn't an issue, just pick a place. And he said I'd love to have you at my birthday party. So it's just going to be the two of us. And I found a place in Ashland where he's going to be doing one of his book readings. And so I'm really looking forward to that. But the Hogan's Heroes was a fun show to do. And one of my favorite roles, I did 2 of them. And I found out recently that I did the very last one. I didn't know that. So it's interesting what I find out when I'm out talking and meeting people, and they'll say, well, you did the last show, because I also did the last Perry Mason. And yeah, I tend to close shows, I guess. Maybe that's where my career
They can't do any better. You finish it, and we can't do any better. We got to finish this.
So anyway, but the first one that I did, I had a song and dance number in, and I was doing I chose to do a kind of Marlene Dietrich, um, yeah, falling in love again, what am I to do? That kind, and I was playing a spy. And I had this lovely little number of that song. And when it was time to shoot it, Jerry London, the director, said, "Okay, Marlon, let's do your number." And I said, "Do you have a choreographer?" And he said, "No, just sing." I said, "Oh, Jerry," I said, "God, I got this great outfit on." And I said, it needs choreographing. And out of the darkness of the sound stage, this voice said, "Do not worry, darling. I choreographed something for you. Come on." And it was Robert Clary, who was the Frenchman on the show.
Sure.
And in 15, 20 minutes, we had the most divine little top hat number. It became one of my favorite roles of all my TV shows. It was just such fun to do. But he didn't have to do that. But he was through for the day, and he just heard this damsel in distress, and came to my aid, and it was a nice memory. I ran into him a couple of times over the years, and I'd say, "I'm still telling that story," and he just get a big smile on his face. It was sweet.
I mentioned to you off the TV here, basically that in my lifetime, I mean, James Franciscus and Tony Franciosa, I've always confused those two for some reason, but you got started with both of them, and as a matter of fact, you were with James Franciscus in a TV series called Longstreet, right?
Yes, I was with James Franciscus in Longstreet, and I worked with Tony Franciosa twice. He did a series called Love, Valentine's Day, it's called. And he did it with Jack Sue. And I also worked with James Ferrantino. So I worked with the three Italians. Ferrantino, Franciscus, and who's the other one?
And who made the best?
Franciosa.
And who made the best pizza?
Oh gosh, I thought you were going to ask me who was the best kisser. I don't think I didn't kiss any of them. But I was lucky. I didn't kiss
I'm just saying that, Italians. I mean, I'm not saying pizza. I mean, was there a lot of pizza on the set?
No, but I won't say which one, but two of the three they had other things on the set.
Okay.
And happy things.
Okay.
I guess.
All right.
I didn't go that route. But anyway, but they were very nice to me. I never had any issues with them.
Cool.
They were great. They were all great.
But you were on the series Longstreet there. It wasn't picked up. It only lasted one season, but it looked like
one season. Series. We did 24. Yeah, we did 24 shows. And I was told that Jimmy didn't like being got tired of playing a blind guy, and I guess wanted to do other things. I don't know if that's true or not. Jimmy came to work, did the show, and went home. I didn't know him any better after 24 shows than I did before. He was very to himself, but very professional to work with. But I always when I wasn't acting, I was having fun with the crew, or I was off somewhere in the studio. We shot it all at Paramount. So I'd be running around Paramount lot saying hello to people. Mission Impossible, I had done one of those, and they were shooting on the lot. So it gets to be like a family thing. So I always had a good time with it. But go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, but Jimmy was just the ultimate professional. Also, he came in prepared.
You did The Odd Couple too, right?
Yes, I did 2 Odd Couples.
Okay. Alrighty.
Yeah.
Any stories about Odd Couple with the folks?
Well, I started to tell one, but I don't know. Well, I'll go this far. I never had a problem with any actor ever, in any way, until I did The Odd Couple, and that was Tony was not fun to work with. And I learned also recently, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it makes sense to me. I noticed when you do a comedy show, lots of times and I did a number of comedy shows, the regulars on the show would kind of have fun all the time and kibitz. And Tony and Jack weren't they weren't kibitzing around together, in between scenes and stuff. And I just felt that, but I never thought anything about it. I thought, oh, they've been doing this for years, and so they just come in, do it, and go home. And but somebody told me that Jack, he and Tony saw to it that they got along, but that Jack didn't really care for some of the ways Tony would do things.
You bring up the Hollywood interactions. I mean, I heard through time, I mean, from Andy Griffith to Frances Bavier, who played Aunt Bee, did not always get along. You mentioned it to Tony Randall and Jack Klugman. And also you've heard, you hear tale of like Lucy and Ricky didn't get well along with Fred and Ethel. I mean,
with Fred. I heard nobody got along with Fred. I don't know if that was true or not.
He survived a pretty good career. I mean, he went from the Lucy Show to My Three Sons. For 5 years.
Yeah, and I did My Three Sons.
Oh, okay. Did you do it like the later episodes? I can't remember. Was there?
This would have been somebody said it was 1963.
Okay, so.
Oh, I know it was 1963 because I was married, and the Bel Air fire happened. I think that was 62 or 63. Right. And Fred McMurray, somebody came, made a phone call or called, and he needed to get home. Yeah, that was the big Bel Air fire. Right. That was huge. And I lived on the poor man's side of Bel Air. Okay. And I was married at the time, and my husband, I called my husband, and he said, I'm evacuating everything I can. We didn't have that much. And he just pulled up in front of the studio. I was waiting outside, and I said, where are we going to stay? And he said, we're going to go to the Lawtons. He was Elsa Lanchester's musical director. She was married to Charles Lawton, the great English actor and director. And yes, and my marriage was very short, but much of it was spent in the home of the Lawtons. I was married about 1.5 years to Ray, and a lot of the time was spent in the Lawton home, and I have lots of stories about that. It was fun. It was Charles. I loved them both, but Charles was just a kick to be around, and
you just
so
mentioned. You mentioned
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you mentioned like Fred McMurray, and I was just making sure that when I mentioned Fred, I meant William Frawley. So you were during the era of William Frawley on My Three Sons.
Yes, that's who that's who I thought you were referring to was Frawley. Yeah. Well, I always heard he was just a cantankerous old guy, but I never did a Lucy show, so I don't know.
So I mean, so you did also The Fugitive, David Jansen.
Oh, yeah.
David Jansen, to be honest, all my life when I've seen those shows, The Fugitive, you just felt like he had this sadness about him. He played a role so very well. Was he? How was he on set? Did he have that same kind of almost? You could feel the sadness of him playing The Fugitive, and how he was like always like he had a chip on his shoulder, which he had during that series. But he did such a great job doing that.
I didn't know David, but he and I recognized each other because we frequented the same restaurant. It was called Mateo's, and it was kind of an actor's hangout place in the 60s and 70s. And we just sort of have like a nodding, you see somebody over and you do that. So now I'm on the set and I'm waiting for him we're going to do our first scene, and I have not met him formally yet. So here he comes, and the director said, oh, David, this is Marlyn Mason, David Jansen. Now get on the couch and start kissing.
There you go, method acting.
That was my introduction, my formal introduction to David. No, he was very sweet, but I have a funny story to tell. Okay. I knew the makeup man on the show, Jack, and I don't remember Jack's last name, but Jack one day said, how would you like to have lunch? And I said, okay, I'll see you at 1 or whenever we break, I'll see you. And so I went to lunch with him. But in the meantime, before I went to lunch, David asked me, he said, would you like to go to lunch? And I said, oh, I can't, I'm going with Jack. And I thought, oh, I wonder how that's going to, to myself, I thought, I wonder how that's going to play. But I wasn't about to say to Jack, oh, no, I'm going to go have lunch with David after I've already accepted an invitation. I think a lot of girls probably would have given up Jack to go have lunch with David, but that wasn't me. And So when we after lunch, I went and I was getting touched up to start a scene, and Jack said, "You should have gone to lunch with David." He he said, I would have been fine with that. I said, "Jack, you asked me first.
Mhm.
If he had asked me first, I would have gone with him, but you asked me first. So if he wants to take me to lunch, he can ask me again," which he didn't. But anyway, I just thought it was kind of a cute little thing. I guess David like, "Oh, you're horning in on my," and there was nothing between David and I at
Uh-huh.
all. So it was just cute. It's this cute little story. And Jack Lord, who I was kind of afraid of, because I always heard he was not fun to work with, but was delightful.
Mhm.
So a lot of the rumors you hear, you just don't pay any attention
Oh,
to
sure, sure.
until you actually work with the person yourself. And because sometimes we hit it off with people and sometimes we don't, but I generally will make a point of getting along, and I usually leave actors alone if I, especially on series shows, because you're having to work so fast,
Uh-huh.
and you're making a mini movie in 6 days, and so I just kind of leave actors. They let me know because I'm just a guest. I was always a guest on a show, so I'm just there for a short time, and they let me know if they want to fool around, have fun, or whatever. Goof, do tricks on the director, or whatever. They so yeah, because I like to pull pranks.
Well, and then I guess some other shows I'm bringing up. Big Valley, I guess you crossed paths with Lee Majors and Barbara Stanwyck on there, I guess. At
Oh
least, those
yes,
folks.
yeah. Oh yeah. She's the queen.
Oh,
She and Betty Davis
okay.
were the queens to me. And I have a photo with her, and well, that's the whole family, Big Valley family, and that I'm in the shot, and there I am next to her. And I had one scene that she was in, but she and I never really had a scene together, which would have really been, gosh, that would have just been peaches and cream to work with her. But anyway, I can say that I did work with her, and Lee was great. He was a lot of fun. But I did two of those shows. I did another one with Peter Brack, and he
Okay.
was a real sweet guy. They were all most except for Tony. Everybody was nice
That's
to
cool.
work with.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Good that you had a great experience like that. And then on another show, Mannix, Mike
Oh
Connors.
yeah, yeah. Oh, he was. Well, I knew him since I didn't know him well, but I knew him as, what was his name? Touch
Touch Connors,
Connors,
yes. When he played
and
kind of
and
westerns, I
we
guess.
had the same drama teacher in Hollywood,
All right.
Alfred Linder, and he was in the adult class. I was in the more younger people's class, and but anyway, who knew that we were going to work together so many years later, or not that many years later. Um, but I only did one Mannix. But yeah,
Okay.
he was a lot of fun. Nice. He was just down to earth guy.
Was there ever a role that you wanted so badly that you never got it? Did it ever happen?
No.
No. So you were lucky. You got everything that, I mean, basically that everything worked out pretty well for you, I guess.
Yeah, and if I lost I would get a script.
Uh-huh.
I'd go in, I'd audition, and I always had the attitude, anybody in this room can do this. If it was a cattle call,
Uh-huh.
because in the early days when you're starting out, it was usually cattle calls, and then when you got established, they would send you the scripts, and you didn't have to read. And I got to that level fairly quickly, where they would just call my agent and say, "We've got a script for Marlyn. Is she available?" Because I did a musical review in a Billy Barnes show in 1963.
All right.
We ran that not quite a year. I think we did about 10 months, and in L.A. And in those days, everybody showed up. All the casting directors would come, producers. I mean, people were really in the business. It's all very cold now, and things done with reels, and the actors have to put everything on their little reels and send it. And I thought, oh, I'm not doing that. So I work all the time now, but just in indie stuff. If I were in LA, I would not make it now, even as an older actress, because I won't audition. I figure I paid my dues.
Oh, yeah.
My acting chops are still
They
sharp.
want to know about you. They can go to the
And
Internet Movie Database and say, hey, look
yeah,
at all that stuff
yeah,
I've done.
yeah. And so, but I feel sorry for the young kids today. It has to be rough for them. And everything's so expensive anyway, just to be alive, whether you want to be an actor or not. It's just so different. And Hollywood is done. That doesn't exist anymore because there's just no feeling of show business there at all.
What happened?
As I knew it.
What happened to, I mean, as you knew it again, and you see these folks from Betty Davis to John Wayne to Cary Grant. I mean, golly, you watch just Cary Grant, and you say, wow, what is that magic? Where did that magic go from Hollywood? What happened?
Well, these are people that had, when you think, first of all, how they look, and the camera loves them. And it's a combination. It's not just the person, but it's all the people that make them come out like they do. You start with the writers, the directors, cameraman, lighting man, makeup man.
Sure.
And it was all make-believe, but it was make-believe done in such a unbelievable way.
Yeah.
You walk out of the theater and a movie would stay with you for days and days and days. And I remember being just so moony. I remember, this is going to be the silliest movie. I remember Victor McCure in Samson and Delilah. And there was just something about him, and I just mooned around for days. My mother was going, "Oh, get over it." I said, "But he's so handsome." And when I think of all the films, I'd bring up Samson and Delilah and Susan Hayward, who was so beautiful. But those movies, when you were in those days, those movies were real the way they did. And now they do real movies, and I don't think quite as much fun sometimes, depending on the movie. But sometimes they get a little too, I don't know. I want to go and lose myself in a movie.
Understand.
And now I go and get in fights, so I don't go to the movies anymore. If you're in a movie theater and you turn on your iPhone, you will hear from me.
Well, any modern. Go ahead.
And I thought people, somebody's going to shoot me one day, so I don't go to the movies anymore because I have no patience. It's so rude put your iPhone on.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's
rude.
just,
I mean,
it's just,
you don't need to.
You can't wait.
Yeah,
you got to see. You got to see if you have a call during a movie.
2 hours.
Really?
Yeah, 2 hours if that much, and you got to get through. Any modern movie that has impressed you? I mean, that you've seen of recent. I mean, I know you say don't go, but anything that's.
Oh yeah, I love the big ones, Oppenheimer and the Flower Moon.
Okay.
Oh gosh, I love that. I like I like some of the movies today. Yeah, my favorite. Somebody asked me the other day who my favorite lady actresses were today.
That's what I was about to ask you, lady or guy.
Yeah, and it's I would right off the top the two English dames, Judi Dench.
Okay.
And Maggie Smith.
Okay.
Yeah, God, I would just and men, Anthony Hopkins right off the top. Those three I would love to work with.
Maybe yes, and that brings you up to the point here. What do you want? What are your views of the future? I mean, I guess still doing shorts, or you would like to do some major motion pictures? If Anthony Hopkins says, "Let's play an older couple," yeah, I guess you'd be right.
I would be right
there like that.
Well, I wrote a short film. It's about 30 minutes called The Right Regrets. You can get it on YouTube.
Okay.
And if anybody's listening, type in Maxwell Caulfield in The Right Regrets, and it will pop up on YouTube.
Okay.
And it's about my last romance that I had. And when I was writing, Anthony Hopkins was who I imagined as the boyfriend, and he was. So I've used him several times when I've written stuff. I have a picture of him, but I picture him as different characters because he's just the supreme actor, and. But anyway, it's a nice little film, and Michael York had a lot to do with my getting the right regrets finished.
Okay.
I wrote the script, and my old 101-year-old friend Ralph Sininsky came out. At the time, he came out of a 27-year retirement. He was 89. He turned 3 weeks after we finished the movie. But he came out of that 27-year retirement to direct it.
Wow.
And so we started. The script was written, but when a script is written, it usually needs work. And so, it was my third script. Mm-hmm. So Ralph and I sat down, and we had a production manager, and we were starting to cast it. And I had a hard time finding a leading man. But Ralph, we started fixing it, and a friend of mine in New York knew that I had written this story. And he happened to run into Michael York. And Michael York says, "Oh, I'm interested in it. Tell her I would like to read it."
Cool.
So I sent it to him, and we talked, and he got very involved with Ralph and myself in some of the rewriting. Mm-hmm. And but when it got down to the nitty-gritty, and I said, "So are you going to be my guy?" And he said, "I can't." And he had surgery. He had not recovered from the surgery yet, so he was not ready to go to work. And of course, my heart was broken. But I said, "Okay, but can I give you a screen credit for?" He said, "No." He said, "I had fun." He said, "No." I said, "But it would make me happy if you let me do that, because you have a lot to do with this script." And he said, "Oh, all right." So he's the first one I give special thanks to. Cool. In it. But he knew Maxwell Caulfield, because Maxwell Caulfield is an English actor. He did Dynasty and another series called The Colbys. Oh, yeah. And he's just wonderful in it. And I have no complaints about Maxwell. He did just a splendid job, and it's a beautiful little film. And so that's what I can do, but that's what I'm doing now is just these. I'm playing old ladies. There you go. But I love playing bad women, and I have here's another one for all you fans. I did a real creepy horror film that Brad Douglas wrote and directed called Besetment. Okay. And you can get it on Amazon Prime, I think, for about $4. Oh, it's worth more. I'm the horror in it, and I'm evil. I'm just.
You like the evil roles better than the good roles.
Oh yeah, because I don't. Evil people don't think they're evil. So when you learn in acting, you always play against what's on the page. If the character is a certain way, you always play against that. And so I just said to Brad, I said, "I'm not playing her the way you wrote her." And he says, "I'm not worried." He says, "I know you'll know what to do with it," because he knows how to write for me. I've done a number of his movies. So that one, but it's called Besetment. So if you guys, anybody out there likes a creepy horror film, but I do creepy things in it that are so creepy they can't even be written by the reviewers. They just refer to it. I have one scene, it's called That Scene. Okay. And nobody can describe it because it's pretty awful.
Folks will have to go and see it.
Oh yeah. It's $4. You can watch it at home.
I mean, let me just say that through time I've learned that Sergio Leone, the director, asked Henry Fonda to be a bad guy, and and it looked like they said, according to what I've heard through time, that was his favorite role, because all his life he was a good guy here, good guy here. He played young Abe Lincoln, all good guys, and he played that one role, bad guy. He says he loved it. Now it sounds like you love the same thing, playing the bad guy.
Yeah, I love the. Yeah, I love playing the. No, it's just fun, because, like I say, we don't a true doesn't think she's perfectly wonderful. I understand. and that can make her even.
My gosh, and it gives you even a broader acting ability. I mean,
Yes.
that you can go acting really far out there.
Yeah, yeah, but it's been fun, and I got to tell you, my career came to a halt when I was 53. My car died and my agent died,
Oh my
and
God.
I thought, dead car, dead agent, dead career,
Oh my.
because there wasn't a lot of work for women my age. So I thought, I wonder if it's time for me to hang it up. And I didn't invest my money. I didn't have anybody in my life who said, Marlyn, we're going to take your salary, all your salaries, and we're going to put them away and have them work for you. I didn't have anybody do that for me. Then I didn't know from money. I just, as long as I could pay my rent, that was all I cared about.
It sounds like you got past it all now.
Well, yeah, and so I thought, now I'm 53, and I'm thinking, okay, if I'm going to be poor, I want to be poor where it's pretty. And a girl that I grew up with since we were in kindergarten, 1945, we were in kindergarten. We were both born in 40. She lived across the street from me, and we literally grew up together. And we were like sisters. And when we graduated, she got married, did the traditional thing, and I beelined it right to Hollywood because that was my plan. And she and I would see each other, every other summer. She would come and visit, or I would come up to Oregon. But she had two boys, and she usually would come down to LA and see all her old friends. And so we always stayed in touch. And then her boyfriend, at one point in the 80s, they decided to leave California and move north. And they ended up in Medford, where I am now. And he built her a little guest house behind her house for her parents. And they came up and they finished out their lives here. And she said to me one day after her dad died, she said, if you ever need a roof over your head, you always have a home here.
Cool.
Never dreaming I would leave Hollywood. I thought I would never leave. I always thought I would work. I always thought I had one of those faces that wasn't real recognizable, and I could work till I dropped dead. And of course it didn't work that way. So I called her up after I had this little talk with myself, and I said, is your guest house empty? She said, it will be July 18th. Why? I said, I'm coming up. And she didn't say, oh, good. She said, will you do the yard? And I said, I don't mow, blow, and go, but what do you want me to do? She says, oh no, I want you to landscape. I like to fool around in the garden. So I've been here 31 years, July 18th this year, and next month. And I've spent 31 years transforming her yard in the back. And it's been a lifesaver for me. And I just have this, I live in 460 square feet, and I lived in a tiny house when I was in LA. So I'm used to tiny house living. And it's really saved my life, I think. I could relax because I had decided, okay, I'm not going to work anymore. Well, a couple of ladies saw me, a couple of agents saw me, and they said, we think we can get you work. This was after I moved up here. And so they got me 2 movies of the week in Portland because some of the LA people were coming to Portland to start making movies. Well, so I thought, oh, good, I can still work here. Never got another job after those 2. So 11 years went by, and through a series of events, I ended up writing a little 488 word, 2 paragraphs, and it was for a contest called Flash Fiction. And you can write in any genre, but you have to write 500 or less, not a word or over. So I told a friend of mine about it, and he said, oh, I always liked that idea you had about being an artist model. And I thought about that when my career was kind of in that slump. And so I thought, oh, yeah. And we hung up after our conversation, and I morphed into this model. And in 45 minutes, I wrote my first short, which was called Model Rules. And I gave it to a local film director here. And he called me up and he said, we got to do this. I said, really? And that was the beginning of my life in indie filmmaking.
There you go.
And I've done, as I say, and I'm going to do another. I have the lead in another one of Brad Douglas's horror films. It's a comedy, and he calls it The Plan. I call it Driving Miss Crazy, but he calls it The Plan, and we're going to shoot that next month.
Cool.
And yeah, and that should be a lot of fun. But I'm a different kind of crazy in this one.
I mean, it's whatever I mean, basically.
I can't give too much away.
Yeah, well, we'll be waiting to see that. And let me just, before we finish this here, I hear that because your name, Marlyn Mason, you get confused with Marlyn Manson. Just about a minute or two we have left. Can you tell me just a little about that confusion?
Yes, I get his fan mail, and I'm assuming he gets mine. And you know what I would love? I would love sometime if you or somebody that does podcasts or does conversations, to get him and myself together.
That might be a good idea. If I can get,
that would be such fun, because I want to ask him.
All I got to just ask him.
I want to ask him if he gets my fan mail.
I'm thinking that would be a great thing. And let me just tell you, it's been a great pleasure to talk to you. And,
John, yes, I can talk forever, as you can tell.
What was that now? I'm sorry.
I said I said I can talk forever, as you can tell.
I mean, I love that. I love that. My first interview ever was Pat Boone, and Pat, I just said one question. Pat talked for 10 minutes. And I think that's great. I think that I like to have my subjects all talk and tell them all about their life.
Pat Boone was such a sweet guy. I met him in Memphis 2 years ago. Yeah, and he was so sweet. That I got what I call Elvis COVID. I haven't had any taste for 2 years.
Okay, call it Elvis. You call it the Elvis COVID.
Yeah, the Elvis COVID, yeah.
Well,
best kind to have. I didn't get sick. I just can't taste anything
or hopefully
smell.
You never have to deal with any more of the Elvis COVID again. And again, it has been a pleasure to have you on my show.
John, thank you, and thank your crew there.
Well, and then thank you, okay?
And goodbye to all of Tupelo. Bye, Puckett.
All righty. Well, thank you, and you take care, okay?
Okay, John. Bye.